And to officially begin this workshop, we officially want to welcome you on this workshop of how to go ahead and organize a good action. I know that a lot of people are here today because you are leading and guiding actions for adaptation. And for those of you who may not know what action for adaptation is, this is a week of action at a regional level that we will go ahead and be doing from the 1st to the 8th of October, where there'll be actions, activities throughout the throughout different locations of the Caribbean. We will be doing actions all across the Caribbean where it will be actions for adaptation, where it will be actions to protect our lives and our communities. This is a map of how we'll be doing different activities. Up to now, these are the different locations that are signed up, and more events are signing up. And for anyone who's here and anyone who's interested in signing up to do an event in your community, you're more than welcome to register an event. Or you can also visit our webpage and be able to see the different events that will be happening and go to that event that will be near you. So in this workshop, we'll be talking about how to plan your event. Maybe you're the leader or a leader guiding this planning, or maybe not. But this workshop is going to be very helpful for folks who are organizing an event for this week of action or for a future event that maybe you may want to do. And why is it that I'm using the word action and not just an event? We use action when we are organizing a mobilization or an activity, something that is more massive, it's bigger, that we want there to be an impact, that we want there to have and draw attention with the decision makers about the importance that this issue is and about the large number of people that are concerned and are thinking of this important issue. And so it can be something that we are doing in terms of doing an action, it can be a conference, it can be a march, a walkathon, or a protest. All these are events that can happen, but the difference between an event or an action is that we're going to add some things that will be able to make it more attractive or make a stronger call and draw attention. But in terms of the planning aspect of it that I'll be mentioning, this happens in a way where like any other event takes place in terms of planning. So what is it that you do? So usually we about a month ago we had an event, a workshop that we reviewed and planned on how to create and plan an event. And you can look at this on our YouTube site. But just to go ahead and review in terms of planning ahead, it is important to set a time and a date, the location. Also to be thoughtful about materials needed, who will get what roles are needed. Also confirm with everyone who will be there, who will be doing all the different volunteers sign up, bringing the materials, basically making sure that everyone is on the same page doing the recruitment. And here we add the aspect of building impact. This is the aspect of action. This is the first step. The second step, so that we can think how we can actually think about creating an action. One, you first need to create and plan your itinerary. And this will help you make sure that things happen at a time so that things flow or are fluid in a organized manner. So it is important to have it in a physical write-up or on your cell phone or even in your mind, but to make sure that it's shared with other people in terms of when are things happening so that there's no time or gap in time where nothing is happening and you lose people or people get bored and they leave. This is very important so that volunteers also know what time to meet up and what is happening so that there's no confusion. Some of the things that, again, that are very important to do is with the volunteers setting up their time to meet up, set up in general of the event if you need to set up or plan for anything that may be, or what time the event will simply start, the opening of the event, if there's going to be any speakers, what time the speakers will be at, how long will they be speaking or presenting for, if there'll be music, and is it going to be what type of music going to be from a playlist? Is it going to be a DJ or who or what and how that's going to happen? And then also closing. And then also, for example, what time is closing and cleanup? It is very important in this to be able to respect times that are established, to not go too much over. If we say that the event starts at 2 p.m. and it's 2:30, and we waited for 50 people and we have 15 people who have arrived, then go ahead and start with those 15 people. Because if you wait for there to be more people and you wait till 3 or 3:30, those 15 people that arrived there on time and were there to be able to participate, they will actually leave. They will feel like they just wasted their time. They won't feel a lot of motivation to come back to an event that you'll set up, and everything will just be behind in time. If you have certain events or you have organizations that are there, they may be working on other stuff and they may have other stuff. So maybe for you having waited for other people to arrive, then they may lose themselves and be able to leave because they have something else to be done after the event that you had said the time will end at. So it is important to stay. Maybe if you go over a few minutes, that's okay. But if you let it go and fall behind over 30 minutes, things can really be affected by this. It is very important that you write the hours and make sure volunteers know this. So it is important that you share this with people so that volunteers and everyone else knows that when is it that time that things should be happening. The third step in terms of when organizing an event is when you establish the roles of the team. It is not easy to organize an event or an action if it's only one person, if it's only one of us organizing. It's not impossible, but it's not easy. It's so much easier when we work in a team. And so this is a list of the different roles. You don't have to use these roles necessarily. Everything is going to vary depending on what you need. But this is a list of a sample of roles. For example, who's going to be participating in setting up the action, the event, who will be doing welcome registration, who will be letting folks know where you can find the logistics of the bathrooms or where things are at, who will be doing the orientation of the itinerary when people arrive, someone who is on the snacks area in the table or the food that you'll be providing. There's also the roles of the facilitator, the speakers, also timekeepers. That's something that's very important. If somebody is speaking, for example, if there is 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on their time, the photography of the action is very important. It sounds obvious, but sometimes you forget. Sometimes you get so involved in all the 1,000 things in an event or an action, and then before you know it, the event ends and you didn't take photos and you have one or three and it's bad quality. So it's always very important to establish a role of a photographer person. Also, if you have social media, it is very important in case you have, for example, if you want somebody to be doing a live streaming, it's important to be doing that. If you're going to be having a microphone or visuals, it's also really important to have somebody do technology lead. Also, if you have cleanup at the end of the event, to be able to do that. Spokesperson for the media, for the press, that's also very important. This is something that not everyone can be doing or not everyone is likes to do. So it is very important to keep in mind. The fourth step is to be looking at accessibility and health of the people who are participating in our actions. And to be able to take this on, it is very important to have certain questions to think about. The first question to think about is how can people of different age range access your event? If I'm only promoting and saying the event in social media, well, people who don't have access to internet or the social media may not go because they won't find out. So they won't be able to know because they're not so active on the social media. So we're losing a good number of people who would be interested. So that's very important to think about, specifically to think about how you can access different people, again, with different ages or accessibility. Another thing that talking about accessibility we can think about is wheelchair users. It's important to think about if you are in a public space. Sometimes if you rent a space, if the space was constructed in a way that's not accessible, then obviously we can't rebuild that space. But if there is the opportunity to make an event more accessible, maybe have a different entrance where there's a ramp, not just stairs or steps. Maybe it's not necessarily the main entrance, or being able to have a bathroom that's more accessible, or be able to have people who can support folks that who cannot maybe get on the space so easily, then that's important. These are the things that you need to think about of how we can support. Again, if somebody arrives to the event in a wheelchair or needs support for accessibility. Another thing to think about is if we need language accessibility, especially if you're organizing an action in an area, especially if you're in an area where there's a large number of immigrant community and you need to make sure that you're thinking about how you're organizing. So think about how are you doing interpretation? How are you doing the different signs so that they are translated correctly, not with Google Translate. Google Translate is horrible at translating. So please do not use it unless someone who is not native to the language can actually review it or do it. And the last thing to consider but not to not consider or think about is that we need to think about how to keep people healthy, to remember that we're still in pandemic times, so that even though there is less of people getting sick, there's still people getting sick. People are still dying because of COVID-19. So it is very important as community leaders to be able to keep our volunteers, our participants, and ourselves in a healthy way, in a safe way. So it is important to have not only hand sanitizer or alcohol, but also be able to remind people to be able to use it. And if you can actually go directly to the people and be able to share alcohol on hand and sanitizer with them, much better. Being able to have masks and also being able to let people know to not attend or come into the action if they feel sick. Even if people say, oh, I don't have COVID, it's just a cold or a flu. But if we don't have the test results that we're not COVID, yes, we want to make sure that we want to treat them fairly, and that even if it's a cold, that we shouldn't make other people be vulnerable or come out and continue getting sick or make other people sick, even if it's just a cold too. So we have to take action so that we are healthy and safe, so that we can keep on taking actions in the future. And if we have to not go to one action and not participate today for our well-being and for other people's, then that's okay, so that we can consider our health first. And then when we're well and healthier, we can actually go in a stronger and healthier way to other events.
The fifth step is key and is very important. And when we talk about organizing an action, press. Press is that thing that is going to make that our event goes through from event to into action. Traditional press, radio, TV, newspaper help us to tell the story of who we are, our event, and it helps us to elevate the topic, to reach new audiences, to connect with people that didn't know about this topic, or maybe they don't care about that much. And people that were, and very importantly, is put pressures on the people that make a decision. It's not the same that we make an event that 100 people arrive, 50 or whatever amount, maybe 1,000 arrive. But if we do not have press, it doesn't have the same impact. 10 people, maybe it's better with press because that leave the politicians and the companies that there is people in just understanding this topic. And if there is politicians that wants to be look good or do any of those things, they know that through the press, they know that as people with power, they have to have that in consideration to have the support of the people that are part of this event, so they receive their votes or whatever. And so to reach to the press, you need a list of your local press. And if you need one, you can write to us and we can share our contacts.
Que diga quién tú eres, por qué estás ahí, qué quieres lograr. Y envía una convocatoria de prensa para cuando quieras que llegue la prensa al evento. Esto se envía antes del evento Si quieres que llegue prensa, se le envía una convocatoria de prensa diciendo tal
If
día,
you want the press to arrive, you have to send a press advisory before and during the event, because it's important that you understand that you want to draw attention to this. Any press release that is happening before or after is important. So even after the event, you can go ahead and send a press release saying what happened. We'll go ahead and give you this presentation, and in the presentation, you'll be able to access to samples where you'll be able to know how to write press advisory and release sample.
en lo que para que la gente
So I don't know if Katrina or someone else can actually do put the link on the chat right now
y ahí puede
so that people can access it right now. But if not, you will go ahead and get the email with the presentation so you can have access to this.
y aquí hay un mensaje ejemplo que dentro de ese mensaje
And there's a sample messaging.
el mensaje ejemplo aquí dice estamos pidiendo
For
que se tomen
example,
acciones
this
de las
sample
Naciones
messaging
Unidas
says, we are
para que
asking
nuestras
for urgent
comunidades
action
puedan estar seguras
so
ante
that
futuros
on
impactos de
adaptation
la crisis
measures
climática.
to be taken so that our communities can be safe against the future impact of the climate crisis. This is a very important sample message
Que tú quieras
that you practice, or whatever sample messaging that you want to do. Why? Because you want to be positive about solutions. Maybe you want to plant mangroves, or you want healthier, clean water. Whatever it is that your action is for adaptation, you want to apply that with your community, and that it speaks positive about the solutions you're proposing. And it offers the example that this is urgent and that it's not impossible, and that you, as a community leader of the event, you provide this hope and this positivity to the press, and you give this message
está tomando acción por
that it is possible and that people are actually taking action for this, and that we're actually looking and holding our government accountable because we know that this is possible, and we know and we want this to actually happen in a more immediate way to be able to protect us and our communities. So go ahead and keep practicing your message, your principal message. If you don't like talking to the press or the media, it's totally normal. But practice with somebody in your community and find maybe who will be able to do that. Maybe it'll be another volunteer if you're not the one to do it. But you need to have someone who will be the press or the media spokesperson. Another thing, other than media, that is also very important is the step number 6, which is about the story that we tell, specifically through our photos and videos. The photos and videos that we take are very important. And so here are some examples that are very important. It's important to take a lot, and they don't have to be perfect, but it's important to let people know what is happening. So if you can take pictures and videos, even if they are not perfect, that helps a lot. It's important that you also do photos or videos of closing in into details, plus big picture shots, so that you're able to see a bigger picture of the people doing activities. It's important to
de la
share
semana
that with us here at 350.org. And if you are one of the leaders of the community and doing this work, remember to please share that with all this. Caribbean at 350.org, at least 24 hours within or after the activity, so that we're able to share that in our own networks and social media. Remember that the photos say a lot, but also the photos say even more if you add a captions to it. And they're very impactful if you do it with a background that is recognized. It's not just something, it's not just a whatever thing if you take a photo with something, but do it with something that's recognizable in the background, something that people could actually identify with, or
qué país es,
people be able to understand where you're at, what country you're on, and what issue or topic you are talking about. Remember also to think about the lighting and using the lighting in your favor
esas son las
depending on the
mejores
day. And it's
opciones
also
de luz.
important to think about the day.
Si la acción es al mediodía, no hay ningún problema,
But if
solo
your action is, for example, during noon,
frente
remember that the light is always to the front of you and not on your background of where you're going to be taking the
aquí un
photo.
ejemplo
Otherwise,
de
it
estas
doesn't come out
fotos,
clear or as
es
bright.
unas fotos de
These are photos,
preparación
for
para
example, to
una
prepare
protesta.
for a
Por
protest that we were
ejemplo,
doing.
un buen ejemplo de
For
fotos que se
example,
pueden tomar
these are some good
a
examples of
voluntarios
photos that you
cuando
can
vienen
take
desde
of
su área para
volunteers as
acompañar.
they are getting
Pueden ser
prepared for the
fotos
activity.
tanto desde cerca de lo que
You
estarían
can see
haciendo,
that
cosas
there's close-up
pequeñas,
photos
o
as they're
fotos
doing
más lejanas
very
de lo que es el
detailed or
impacto
small
de lo que
things,
ellos están
to
haciendo a través de las
other
redes.
things that you can see that are
Aquí
more
otra foto más, por
broader
ejemplo, se ve el fondo de
space
la
of what's
calle,
happening. Here
están
you can see the
cerrando
background,
a
you
una
can see the
pared,
street. They're not necessarily against
eso puede decir un poco de
the
la
wall. You can see where they're
quieren
at, the
hacer
monument. You can see a little bit of the
fotos
city.
que
And
la
if
prensa
this was going to
pudiera
come out
capturar.
with the press or the media,
Tales personas se reunieron frente a este
maybe
monumento
people will
y
be able to
todas
say
las
that, oh,
personas
so
que se
many people
reunieran
met
en
at such a
puente
monument or
frente a un
place
árbol, frente a una pared, pero no
versus
dicen mucho de dónde
saying,
estaban,
oh,
ni dónde
some
estaban
people just met at by a tree. It says a lot of
y
if you
esos
actually mention
eventos
where in the location
como
and
tienen
something that's recognizable.
una acción con
So if there's an
algo
action, remember to keep
y lo
people
diferenciante
or
hacia
the
enviarlo
spokespeople,
a
the
través de redes
facilitators,
está
be able to have them on the background and the
participando y
people who
ocupada
are
por el tema.
participating and that they are intrigued
Y
or
aquí
involved with
voy a
that
dar
conversation.
un ejemplo
And
de
here I'm
cómo
going to give
hacer
you
que
an
estas fotos
example
sean más impactantes.
to
Aquí
see that
tengo fotos
a photo
mías,
that's more impactful. For example, you can see
ayudan
two photos of
pueden
mine. One
frente a una
is
pared cualquiera
against a wall, which is the
y
whatever
el de
wall,
abajo
and
estoy
the one on the
frente
bottom,
a un árbol
and I'm next to a
que
tree.
cuando me las tomé, pues
That when I took them,
especialmente la del árbol, yo pensé,
especially the
bueno,
one
me
with the
va a
tree,
gustar
I
esta
thought,
foto porque estoy frente a un árbol
oh,
y
I thought
es
this
una
photo is going to
foto
look good and I'm
muy
next to the
importante
tree, I'm
tomar en
by
cuenta
nature.
que aunque
But it's really important to
amamos
keep
la
in mind,
naturaleza,
even though we love
tomar fotos y videos frente a
nature,
ella no
taking photos
necesariamente
and video
es
in
lo
front
más
of nature is not
impactante o lo
necessarily
que
what's
mejor
most
se va a ver
impactful
ante la
or
cámara.
that's going to look the
Ahora
best
la
in a
diferencia
photo.
en
Now,
esta
see
foto
the
que
difference
me tomé
here with
con mi
this
esposo
photo that I
frente
took
a
here
un
with my
edificio
husband
histórico reconocido. Hay
with a
muchos edificios
historical
al aire
building that's
libre
very
como donde
recognizable.
estamos, que es el
There
lugar
is
ahora en
more
Breakout.
impact here,
Fueran
and
nosotros
now it
solos,
tells a
imagínate
story.
si fuera un
Now
grupo
you can
de
see both of us.
activistas de
Imagine
protesta.
both of us.
Este
Now
edificio
imagine if
les
there
podría
is
llamar la
a
atención al
group of
gobierno, por
activists
ejemplo,
with
no es lo
picket
mismo
signs or posters in
imaginarnos
front of here,
nosotros
and we want to send a message to the government.
frente
If the
a
government sees this, if the politicians see
tomar
this,
fotos
now they
de
can see
varias zonas
something,
versus
or
verlo
they see
en la
something
foto
with the
frente al
tree where I'm
monumento
at on the
que
left.
está arriba a la
Now
derecha.
see that if I'm on the photo
Aquí
with
vemos otro
the
ejemplo
building,
de
it's
cómo la
it's a different
foto es más
impact. Now
impactante
this
que
is
a través de
something,
verlas
another photo that adds a
un
whole other
fondo,
layer
que en
to
este
it
caso se ve el
when
pueblo
there's a
reconocido.
background. In this
Y
case,
otra
you can
foto más
see the
como
town
si tenemos un
at
grupo
the
de
background.
activistas ahí,
And so imagine now if you
esto
see a
tiene un
group of
impacto
protest or
ponerlo frente a una
action
pared, frente a otro
folks
árbol.
with their
Que
picket
para muchas
signs
otras
or
fotos no
different
necesita subir una
banners
montaña
and
o
having the
caminar
background. Now,
kilómetros
you don't have
para
to go up a big
conseguir
mountain
que
and
lo busquen, que alrededor mío que
to a historical building, but look around your surroundings and somewhere where it's recognizable. Maybe it's the building that looks in the background, or nature that is very clear of what is going on, and that it really lets people know exactly more of what's going on and where you're at, so that your message is stronger. After the action, it is also very important that we are appreciative of the volunteers and the participants and anyone who helped, and for all their support and their work and the activity. It's important to gather participants' information and make sure you invite them to future events. It's important that you have an event or a meeting that you planned so you can invite them to new volunteers. It's important that soon after the event that you write to them so that you're able to invite them to future events, and make sure that you contact them. It's important to invite people within the 24 or 48 hours that they went with you, that were excited or had a lot of connection with. It's important within 48 hours. That's when people's mind is still pretty much in contact with the event and the feelings that they had and experience that they had. It's also important to let folks know and to publish your event of the information within 24 hours, and that includes photos and any other future press release that you may do after the event. Otherwise, if you do it after 24 hours, you lose some impact. Again, if you're organizing an event for the week of action, please go ahead and send photos and videos to the following email, caribbean@350.org. And at the end, it's important to celebrate. Not everything is work. Not everything is just struggle, and resistance. Of course, this is very important, but it's also very important to recognize all the achievements and to know that there is going to be strong actions and they're going to be impactful, and that everything is going to be great, and that you appreciate and give thanks to the volunteers, to all the participants, and that it's really important to let everyone know that, and that this is all part of the process of moving forward. And so up to this is part of what we can share with the best practices and recommendations of how your actions can flow in a such more easy way and create impact. And we're going to continue now with an activity, but before doing the activity, one of the things that I would love to create space here now for is, what questions do you have? Either you can turn on your microphone or put them on chat. What questions do you have about any of the steps that we just talked about?
Muy buenas tardes, Amira. ¿Me oyes?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me, Amira?
Sí, sí, saludos, sí. Es que quería preguntar que sí, en efecto, hice el
Yes, I
envío.
wanted to ask, in
Toda
effect,
la información que me envió.
thank you so much for the
La,
information
la
you
convocatoria de la prensa.
forwarded to me.
He recibido entre las que envié, alguna me contestó pues que era muy reciente y tenían ya estructurado que lo que
With the
pedían que
different
enviara
emails or photos that I sent,
fotos de la actividad para ellos entonces luego divulgarlo.
some of the press said that I had taken something that was very recent, to give them something that was very recent so that they can actually share.
sí,
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Hi, I'm Etienne. I'm very interested in this action for climate change, but I think there is something that I have as a concern, that it's not the same to talk to people about climate change. For example, you're a millennial, and but baby boomers, for example, that's part of the generation that I'm part of. they're much more resistant to be accepting this situation. They're like so just accepting of the situation. For they actually don't want to change. They don't want to see the changes or change. What strategies can we actually do so we can actually reach this type of generations that don't really want to talk about this? Thank you so much.
Sí, como acción,
So this is part, for example, of action of events with these actions
podemos hacer
is sometimes maybe you don't have to call them action. We can plan an action without naming them action. Maybe you can say in a gathering or conference or workshop or training. So maybe you want to think about what it is that you want to draw attention with and what the media wants to and what you want to share with the media so that there's a bigger impact. So maybe you won't use the word action so that these people are not scared who may think that protesting may be bad or they don't their resistance to change. That way they can come more with the motivation or interest of wanting to learn or wanting more information and wanting to come out to learn more about this initiative that you may be doing that is necessary without even calling it an action. Thank you for your question.
creo, había
And
levantado
I
la
saw that Edison also raised their hand.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? I know it's very loud in here. I'm sorry for that. But as you were mentioning, the need to make sure that the photographs are in fact impactful by ensuring that they have images or historic objects with historical impact that are easily recognizable. My plan for the action was actually to go to a small island and show how the impact of human activity is affecting climate change and highlight the importance of ecological services. Right. So could you please maybe give me some guidance because I feel like there are no real built-up structures on that particular island, but there's another one nearby which is privately owned, and photography of that island is very touchy. Right? So could you please give me some advice and guidance there?
Yeah, está, ¿me escuchan?
Can you
¿O
hear
no?
me? Can you hear me? Yes?
Sí, te escuchamos.
Okay, sí.
Yes,
Yes, I
yes,
can
we
now.
can hear you.
Okay. Did you hear my question?
Sí.
Yes, I heard your question.
Okay. Thank you.
Tu área mejor que nadie.
You know your area more than anyone else. So my suggestion is
Es que para crear impacto,
that in order to create impact, that you include people. Sometimes we love nature a lot, right? And we want to just take photos of nature. But that, in terms of the press or the media, it doesn't have the same impact if there is people involved in that. That if when there's people in the event, in the photo, it generates a different impact. So if you can take people to that island or that location where you'll be doing the action or event, doing or learning and doing the impact, that will definitely help a lot. Rosalina, I will go ahead and take your question and then we'll continue on to the breakout groups. More than a question, it was an observation because I understand the concern that the other person said, where we are part of a generation that's really hard to convince. But for example, this last, a few
planificamos un arte
moments
y ella
ago or
decía,
some time ago that
no,
we
es que
went
una hora
to
nos
I went to visit a
adaptamos
friend
tenemos que
and we were
explicar
talking
a
to a
esta gente
person, a
de que
teacher,
podemos adaptarnos,
about the event that we're
no
doing, and she
todos
said she had a pretty negative response and
que
said,
vamos
no, that's
a
not going to
elaborar
happen.
un
I said,
arte
no,
con
actually,
todos estos
this is
aspectos
going
de
to be very,
cada
very
que
important.
vamos a hacer.
Let's actually think about the all the adaptation that we
Es
need to
verdad,
do.
muchas gracias por traerlo. Es
That is
importante
very true. It's important.
sistemático,
The
trabajo
mobilization is very important,
pero no es lo mismo
and it's a very
el
important
hacerte
conversation,
que trabajar
and it's very
para
different to
entregar
do the conversation that it moves away from sadness or that things are not going to change, but to move them to things are possible to change. Now we're going to move into an action of breakout groups.
vamos a hacer grupos de
We're going to
personas que estén
do a
liderando
group
eventos
of folks who are going to be leading different actions for adaptation.
puedan
We want you to be able to get to know each other
explicar de dónde
and be able to share
salió,
briefly with each other about your event.
traten de ser breves para que
Try
todos
to be
podamos
brief so that everyone can share and have a
que no
turn.
están liderando un
And
evento
anyone who may not be
están aquí
leading or organizing an event, but you want to be learning more about how to organize actions,
cuál es
well,
una
we want to
acción
get to hear what you would like to do as a future action in your
Katrina nos va
community. So now Katrina will go ahead and divide us in small groups, and we'll come back in 10 minutes.
hola
Hi,
de vuelta gracias
Hola,
welcome back.
te escuchamos nuevamente.
súper gracias por estar aquí de
We're
vuelta
here listening to
esperamos
what you're saying. Thank you so much for being back here. We're about to finish.
que la conversación en sus grupos
And
haya
I hope
sido
that this
buena, que
conversation
hayan
in
conocido
your
a alguien
breakout
de
groups
otros
was
lugares.
good and that you were able to meet other people from other places. We want to give you thanks for being here in this workshop, in this training,
que hemos tenido a lo largo de este año.
and by being able to participate in this series of workshops that we've had throughout this year and that started in March and it ended today. It ended today, but that doesn't mean that it ends today or that we won't be doing more activities or training. We'll be doing other
Comenzamos con la nueva
activities throughout the Caribbean. And also, again, at the beginning of the year, we'll be doing monthly trainings, workshops in 2023. So do, if you're not hearing from us of workshops in a few months or for the rest of this year, don't worry. It only ended for the 2022 series of the year, but we'll be back in 23. We want to give thanks to the
apoyando,
interpreters who will be facilitating and interpreting and supporting all these workshops that we've been doing since March and supporting this work of language justice and supporting folks who speak English, who speak Spanish. So we want to thank you to give thanks to the interpreters. If you can definitely turn on your microphones and give a thanks and be in gratitude with everyone, to the interpreters. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate
Merci,
some good
monsieur.
Gracias a todos.
Un apoyo bien grande desde Atillo.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias por estar aquí. Que tengan buenas noches. Mañana le enviamos la
Thank you
grabación.
for being here. We'll send you the recording to
Mira, Francis.
Gracias.
everyone tomorrow.
Recording
We'll go ahead
stopped.
and email the recording to everyone.
Gracias.
Recording stop.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Mira la otra.
Thanks, everyone.